Attention, everybody. The views and opinions expressed on the show are not necessarily those of Acts Ministry, Acts Media Group, and or their affiliate and supported ministries and nonprofits. And here they are, back again today for this next hour. It's the happy hour with Dr. Paul and his lovely wife, Nancy. Take it away.
Yeah, hello, everybody. Welcome again. It's another Friday morning. Comes around the same time every week, amazingly enough. I'm Paul Collins, along with my wife, Nancy, and we greet, as always, in the very beginning, while some of you are getting pad and pencil ready to take some notes, we greet our friends in the St. Joseph, Missouri area, Shirley Simpson, Sally Pike, and Scott Hodgen, and Virginia Shortle, and Jerry, Jerry was Virginia's husband, who's now deceased, Reed James, Loretta McRae, and others. And we greet our folks in Texas, the great state of Texas, way up there in the Panhandle around Lubbock, the Gages, the Elvers, their church.
And the Ways.
And the Ways. And the Ways are not in Lubbock. They're close by. They're in Ransom Canyon.
That way.
That's right. And then down there deeper into Texas, we have Galen Garrett. She's in the Dallas area. And then on down toward the Houston area is Judy Nickel. And we have a lot of friends up in northwest Missouri who follow us, in north central Missouri, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Jerry Chambers over in the St. Louis area. And anyway, we've had people also following us in Germany and France and so forth. Anyway, Nancy, beginning in April, there will be a whole new lineup of programming here on Acts Media Group. Now, I want all of you folks to be mindful of this. April is not that far away. Today is March 12th, so I'm dating this broadcast, obviously, by saying that, but that's all right. But April is not that far away, and beginning in April, the 1st of April, the Acts Media Group will have their program line up a little different, and it's going to be good. You're going to like it. They're going to rename some shows and add some shows, and move our time. Our time slot will be moved, and our name will be changed. It's going to be very exciting, very interesting, a great change. By the way, folks, Acts Media Group, one of the few TV type outlets that you can get online on your computer that brings you quality broadcasting, dealing with pertinent subjects and wonderful personalities that are interviewed, and very informative, very educational. In fact, Nancy, in April, the shows that we do will all be very educational, and it's hoped that people will always have a pad and pencil on hand, take notes, and
I need to have my pad and pencil and take notes.
That's right. Now, also, anyone who has comments or questions, all you have to do is go to Acts, and Acts is A-C-T-S. It's not A-X-E. It's A-C-T-S, like the book of Acts. Short for action, A-C-T-S, Media, M-E-D-I-A, Group, G-R-O-U-P, Acts Media Group, and .com. And you can find, if you just take your time, you can find by exploring a lot of really good stuff. And through that website, you'll be able to contact Nancy and me. They will forward emails to us, and we will answer your questions or give you a definite maybe, one of the two. And because we're going to deal with some topics, especially in April, that you folks are going to want to pay attention to. Not that you want to pay attention today, because you do. This is good stuff we're going to have today. By the way, Nancy, also, I've been in discussion with some very interesting people to interview as soon as we can get them scheduled in. One is a retired medical doctor who was an industrial doctor. He worked running a clinic in an industrial setting, working for a company. And before that, he worked for an institution of higher learning, running the clinic as the campus doctor.
My goodness.
And before that, he was in private practice. And he led the crusade to end smoking in public places and restaurants and so forth here in this area. And of course, Springfield, Missouri is basically smoke-free little city. In fact, I'm so fond of Springfield, I call it Springburg, USA. It's my favorite little city in the whole world. I adopted it in 1977, been here ever since. I love Springfield. Anyway, so we will have those guests and some others coming up that, we'll have one that is a retired founder of a major college. He started it from scratch, and it is highly accredited, has about 13, 14, 15,000 students now, and makes a tremendous impact on this area. So we'll probably have him and some others. Well, Nancy, in the news, we have all kinds of things going on. We have continuing stories about human trafficking, where women and children are sold into slavery that's unsavory. We have people who are in economic bondage, even in the United States of America. Religion in the news, we've had some very high-profile pastors of churches who've been in difficulty. Some had to resign, and some have passed on. And after they passed on, they discovered that they'd had many indiscretions, and so the people who were working for them are trying to revamp and redo, and folks don't realize that when you have a high-profile minister who has a high-profile nonprofit organization, that there are hundreds of people who are employed, and when that guy goes haywire, hundreds of people who are employees, their paychecks are affected, which means their families. So it multiplies out. If they have an average of two children, all of a sudden 200 people becomes more than 200 people who are affected. This is a serious, serious matter. But not only is it affecting religion, it's affecting politics. Right now, one of the big names, a big governor in the United States of America, yesterday, woman number 6 came forward accusing him of indiscretions, and he was already in a little bit of hot water because of the way he was handling the coronavirus epidemic. I won't mention names here. It's not necessary. Everybody watching me, they know who they are, who I'm talking about for the most part. But that's in the news. It just seems to be inundating us. Every time you turn on TV, there it is. Even, Nancy, you know I spend hours, just about every day, hours in front of my computers.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I guess every day. A few hours even on Saturdays and Sundays. And the internet news is full of it too. Now, also on internet news, some stuff that's very troubling to me are all these malinterpretations, not just misinterpretations, but malinterpretations.
What's that mean?
Bad, using for a bad purpose.
Okay.
Maleficent means bad, you know.
Okay. Malware means?
Malware means bad.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just misinformation about events in the news, but it's malinformation. That is, these people are putting this stuff out on purpose to create anxiety and panic and wrong actions on the parts of folks who have good hearts who read this stuff and believe it. I read the other day some guy saying, now, this website, we do not have any advertising or sponsors, but if you want to donate, you can, you know, whatever. And but here in the news, Donald Trump has ordered the U.S. Navy to arrest Hillary Clinton, and they've done it, and she's now in Guantanamo. Well, to begin with, Donald Trump is not president. Secondly, I don't think the U.S. Navy takes orders from him or any president directly. And thirdly, Hillary Clinton, I saw her right after that on the news being interviewed. Well, they follow that up by saying, well, you know, it wasn't really Hillary, it was a clone, that the real Hillary is in Guantanamo. And then, remember, he said no advertising, then all of a sudden there's all these advertisements coming up They do this for money, and they don't care who they hurt. And sorry to say, many conservative people, Christian or otherwise, are being hurt because of malinformation. Let's call it what it is. So with that going on, if that's not enough, a couple of weeks ago, we had parts of an airliner falling out of the sky. Remember that story?
Yep.
Somebody right in their front yard, here was this huge ring. That thing must have been like,
It was like
30 feet around.
Yeah.
You know, that was the frame from around a jet engine fell in their front yard within a very few feet of hitting their house. Yeah, airplane parts falling out of the sky. Now, Nancy, I have seen a lot of airliners go over. I've seen a lot of airplanes fly over. Never once had I imagined that I'd have to be concerned about parts of an airplane falling out of the sky. I have to tell you this. I am old enough. I remember when I saw my first airplane. Somebody said there's an airplane. We went out in the backyard. I lived at 103 Hinton Avenue, Moberly, Missouri. Went out in the backyard and flying ever so slowly overhead, because they couldn't fly very fast, was a biplane. Now, we called them two-wingers because there was a wing on top of a wing. Open cockpit biplane flying over, and we were amazed. That's what we've been hearing about. That's an airplane. So after that, my next experience with an airplane was we heard that the owner of the local junkyard knew how to fly an airplane.
I can see where this is going.
So we went out to the Moberly airfield. It wasn't really an airport; it was an airfield. They had a place, they had a shed to put an airplane in, and then there was a dirt runway type thing and landing strip. And there was a lot of folks that gathered there. We got an up close look at a Piper Cub. Now I think Piper Cubs are built in Wichita. They used to be, probably still are. Piper Cub, and it was the fuselage and the wing were covered with canvas, and open cockpit, and but junkyard Fred Bell was flying it by himself. He climbs into the cockpit, puts on a leather helmet. That wasn't really a helmet; it's a leather hat that had ears on it. Came down, tied the strap
Like
on
you'd
there.
see in one of these old movies.
That's right. And
Yeah.
then he pulled his goggles down, and the postmaster and the mayor handed him a bag of mail, a big canvas bag of mail, and it was going to be the first flight of carrying mail from Moberly to Kansas City. And then they had to get out in front, and they grabbed the propeller, wooden propeller, and pull it around. They fired up the engine, and we were amazed when we saw Junkyard Fred Bell take off from the Moberly Airport with a bag of mail. The bag of mail just about filled the other cockpit seat, and off he goes to fly the mail to Kansas City. Interestingly enough, none of us were there to see him return and make his victorious landing, but he did, because
Yeah.
Fred Bell lived a long time and flew a lot more miles than an airplane, so-called airplane. So those are my first two experiences with airplanes up close. My third one was different because it happened during World War II. And we had a place there at the airport. They set up some viewing stands. They're not there now. They were, I guess, they put them up for one occasion and took them down. Anyway, we were there for this treat to see a whole bunch of Army military gliders land.
Oh, yeah, those were neat.
And so they were cut loose somewhere up in the air by big transport type planes, and there must have been like a dozen of them that came in one at a time, soaring in, gliders, no motors on these gliders, and landed. Now, these gliders were used in World War II
That's
to
right.
drop troops behind
Yes.
enemy lines. It was, so those were my experiences. Now, before I wear people out about airplanes, need to talk then, I guess, about some of the other challenges that have been posed by the coronavirus and other situations. Challenges to business. By now, a year after the coronavirus was announced, many people have gone a long time without
Get out on Wednesdays, and I go by there. Of course, I'm going by early, and so that's a lot of times when people haven't even, you might say, left home to go to work.
right.
But when I come home, there's still not a lot of cars at all. Not like it used to be.
No, it used to be packed out.
Exactly.
And when we would get there, we'd drive around looking for a good parking space. And because I have this bad knee, it's not a football knee, it's an old knee, bone on bone. And so we try to park as close as we can. But finding a parking spot these days is not a problem. But there are other businesses that were challenged. The dentist that we go to see, one time we had to wait until it was our turn to get in the building and wear a mask. And then there's nobody in the waiting room but us. And we managed to get our dental care. The next time we went, we were able to walk right into the visiting area, but we were still the only ones in there. So it's changed the dental practice. It's changed medical practice, because you go into a medical office now, the waiting room, there are no magazines. And that makes sitting...
And the seats, if they've got a lot of seats, some of the seats have tape over them, and so that people can't sit next to people unless it's like husband and wife, and they would have two chairs together or one big long chair.
And they'll also have little signs they lay in the
Exactly.
seat saying, leave this seat vacant.
Yes.
So being in a medical office waiting room or clinic office waiting room is very different now. Better have this little stupid smartphone with you so that you can have something to read while you're there, because there's no magazines to read.
Well, I take my puzzle book with me.
In your handy dandy purse.
Yep.
I want to come back to that if we have time, but I want to also deal with how this not only has been a business and professional challenge, but it's affected schools and students. Some of you, I think you may be saying, Paul, we've heard all this. We don't need to hear more. We need to be reminded, folks, that it's an interesting time when children are tired of being absent from school. When everything is normal, kids look forward to a vacation day. They're loaded up to here with vacation days. They don't want any more. They want to be back in school. And here in Springburg, USA, starting later this month, following the spring break, which has been going on for a year just about, they will go back to class 5 days a week. And from all indications, the students are more than ready.
What's going to be interesting is, let's say you've got a child or person between 10 and 12, give them about 20 years on them and have them look back at all this, and then have them have kids and see how their experience during this time out of school, you might say, is they're going to look at their kids, and if their kids have any fussing to do.
Well, along the same line, this has posed a challenge for some teachers, because they had to learn to do some stuff online that they really were not specifically trained to do. Now, I remember when I was teaching college classes, we had a new president came on campus, and he was a computer guy. So almost immediately, it seemed we had a computer on every instructor's desk, and we did away with a printed syllabus, and it had to be online. We had a program called Blackboard, and we would post grades there, and we were very, very high tech for that time. Now add to that, and I wasn't trained for that, obviously, but so you add to that now having to teach strictly online, and most teachers were not trained for that. Now I knew a lady who did online teaching for University of Phoenix. They were totally online, had been for years, but most were not trained to do that, so they had to learn a new skill, new computer skills. Another thing that has been brought about by the coronavirus in schools is right now we still have some teachers, because of their union, saying we're not going back to school. And it's causing some Americans to say, see, we told you so. The National Association of Teachers, the union, has been too strong. It's the largest union, by the way, in the United States. And National Education Association or something it's called. Anyway, they now are flexing their muscles in certain areas like California, Chicago, saying, it's too soon, we're not going back to work. They're at odds with the mayor of Chicago, a beautiful black lady who seems to be very competent. It's, you know, who can be competent in a city like Chicago anyway? Because crime rate and complications that have been going on for years, and not just years, but I mean years and years and years, even before I was born. So there are problems concerning not only the students who may have missed out. I'm wondering what this is going to do to college entrance exams for these students who've lost this amount of time. Tell you what I predict. I predict that the SAT and other college entrance exams will lower their standards out of necessity to be able to admit students into college who otherwise would not have been admissible. Now, where I taught, we had open enrollment. There were no SAT scores involved, no high school scores. If you had a high school diploma, you were admissible. And so as a result, in my classes of 24, sometimes I gave them permission to give me an overload. I was a popular professor. I really was. Students liked me. I'm all but about 6 in the course of 10 years. I think I had 6 who didn't like me. All the rest of the hundreds that I had, they liked me, and I was quite popular. So often, I would have to give permission to have an overload in my class. So I might have 30 students anyway. In that mix, you had all levels of ability. You had very bright students, very bright. They can make an A as easy as falling out of a chair. Had other students had to really struggle. I had some who struggled to read, yet they were in college, but I loved them, every one of them, and I wanted to help them. What a marvelous opportunity it is to invest in the lives of young people. One of these guys, who was a good student, lives up north of Springfield here, about 25 miles. He's an insurance agent, married, 2 children. He's on Facebook quite a bit. His wife's on Facebook a lot. They post pictures of their children, and he and I communicate a little bit by Facebook and by email, and he's become a super businessman in a small town of maybe 5,000 or 6,000 people, something like, or in that range, and a marvelous husband and a great father. I take holy pride in having played a part in his life. The other day, Nancy, going through some of the stuff in my writing room, that collectibles, I found a letter that was written to me by a former student, a young woman, a letter of appreciation for me having been her professor. And I cherish that. Anyway, if you are a student, take heart. Apply yourself very, very diligently to your studies, because someday you'll be glad you did. Don't be like me. I don't recommend this. Everybody has their own thing. But I've told people I never made real good grades in school. But I was too busy learning to make grades. Some people know how to make grades. They come out of school and they really don't know much. So get a balance in there. Get the grades, but also make sure you learn. For the teachers, you invested in your education, but we, the people, invested more than you invested through our tax dollars. I recommend that you be appreciative of the opportunity you had. You chose your profession. Nobody twisted your arm or forced you to be a teacher. You chose it. Do it. Science tells us that young children are less likely, very unlikely to carry the virus and so forth. You are the danger, not the children. You wear a mask if that's your feeling. Get the kids back in class. Teachers union, get off your high horse and get to work. You've been getting paid. The other day, Nancy, I saw where they recommended, the state superintendent of schools in California, I think it was, recommended that when the students, or when the faculty, teachers, went on spring break to the beach, not to take pictures and post them on social media. Good idea, because you've been on break for a year and you've been getting paid for a year. Now go back to work. It's time. So I want to back up now to the medical situation, and I will include in this the dental situation and so forth. Anything that people connect with the medical field. We have some folks who do, I think, unnecessary complaining about the medical field. They complain about the cost of medical care. They complain about the cost of medical insurance. They complain about special status in which we place medical doctors. I never want to complain about that. I saw some things the other day, a travelogue type show on public television. A man touring a place in Africa. It was not a medical show, but he was there looking at food and lifestyle. I looked at that and I thought, and there's no medical care in sight, no hospital in sight, no supermarkets in sight, no great entertainment venues in sight. Folks, it's time that we Americans begin to appreciate what we have. And let's extend that to our medical services. Nancy and I live within, say, a mile and a half of major hospital, and all of our doctors, with the exception of one who's a dermatologist, and she's probably 3 miles away, they have every kind of equipment needed to take care of us. They have the skills needed. They have the education and the knowledge to take care of us. We are blessed with a wonderful medical system. Springburg, USA has 2 really large hospitals, a really large health care service that's not with the hospitals, and another smaller hospital. And within range of us in these small towns around us, great hospitals. Let's be thankful. When I go in to see any one of my doctors, whether it's my primary care doctor, who's been a guest on this show, by the way, twice, Dr. Jamie Durfee, beautiful young woman, middle 30s probably, just brilliant. And what a delight. I let her know that I want to be a good, willing, cooperating partner in my own health care. When I go see Dr. Stephen Kewen, my cardiologist, I tell him the same thing. He's a brilliant man. He put 4 stents in me and then recommended I have a pacemaker, sent me to another young cardiologist who
Dr. John Garner.
Dr. John Garner, who specializes in pacemakers. And Dr. Kewen said, if I ever need a pacemaker, John Garner will install it. And John Garner said, if I ever need a stent, Dr. Kewen will install it. And I let those guys know I want to be a very willing, cooperative partner in my health care. And I try to do that. I really do. Don't have the medical profession as your enemy. Make them your friend. Now, speaking of friends, I hinted at this last broadcast, and this is just going to be another hint because it's something I'll deal with in great detail in the April shows that we do. But I tell you, someone else you need to have as your friend, not just your medical personnel, medical doctors, and your dentist, but you need to have the banker as your friend. Don't let him become your enemy. Don't you become his enemy. Nancy and I achieved a milestone a few days ago, and I called the owner of the bank. It's a state bank. It's a small bank. It has the guy that started it owns over 50% of it, and he has a strong board of directors who were shareholders. But I called him on his cell phone, told him what I had done, what we had done, and I thanked him for the role that he had played in us, in our finances. And I took him back through the history. We have nearly a 40-year history with him.
It's over that, isn't it? Because he used to be on North Glenstone.
Yeah, it's over 40-year history. Anyway, he and I took great delight in that. And I gave him credit. Give credit where credit is due. Give praise where praise is due. And I thanked him for the role that he had played in our lives, because he was not our enemy. We were not his enemy. We were partners in our finances. Now, if you have a financial advisor, someone that's like a financial planner that helps you with investments, don't be at odds with them. Be a willing and cooperating partner. Investments, if you're being guided by investments by someone who's a professional, they don't have to be a mystery to you. They don't have to be unreachable. Make that person your friend. Know their cell phone number. And that way you can call them or text them your questions. In other words, be so close to your financial advisor that you know what the stuff is you receive in the mail. Sometimes we receive stuff, I don't know what it is. This morning, our mail came early, and there were 4 or 5 pieces of mail that out of those 5, well, we had 9 pieces of mail altogether. But I quickly opened them and laid them out on my desk before we left to come here to the studio. I noticed 2 of them I may need help in interpreting. They were new to me, new names. So when you invest with certain funds through a financial advisor, then those funds sometimes, periodically, they move your investments around, and then you'll get this report from some company you never heard of. It doesn't have to be a mystery to you, and shouldn't be. Stay close to your financial advisor and his staff. Treat them nice. and most usually they'll treat you nice. So in other words, when it comes to business or school or medical stuff, when it comes to finances, make friends of these people so that you can be conversant with them always. Well, why is all this important? Because we got a time coming when already banking procedures are changing. For instance, some of the banks have had their lobbies closed a long time because of the virus. If you have a safety deposit box at a bank, you have to have an appointment to go in to get into that box. Most of the business is conducted through drive-throughs. Some people now are conducting business on these little stupid smartphones, I call them. They're doing their, now we don't do that. And one reason I don't is because in 2018, now that's soon going to be 3 years ago, every second of every minute of every hour, 127 new devices connected to the internet. Every second. 1001. A second passed. Now probably 200 new devices connected. Not only that, in 2018, every 3 seconds, someone in the United States was a victim of cyber crime having to do with these things and with these things. Cyber crime. That was 20 a minute, 1,200 an hour, 28,800 a day, 10,512,000 per year. But banking has changed and is changing rapidly. We need to get ready for the changes. Don't get caught without the resources to take care of your resources. Well, we only have a couple of minutes left according to that clock. 2 minutes left. And in those 2 minutes, Nancy, I will remind folks that they need to go to axmediagroup.com. They can find a lot of shows there. Go there regularly and make it a point to be with us every Friday morning at this time through the month of March. After that, we change days and we change times. We'll let you know about that. And enjoy, though, since this is Friday, I can tell you, start in next Monday at 8 o'clock in the morning, enjoying good programming over youtube.com/Axe Media Group or facebook.com/Axe Media Group and other social media platforms, and start out by enjoying what's now called the Morning Drive. It's been on for years, and then that's followed up with another program at 9 o'clock and then another program at 10, and it'll be that way Monday through Friday next week. So do it, and go to the website, take a look at Axe Media Group inside and out, and whatever you do, find that little donate button. And all you have to do is click on it. It'll tell you how to use your credit card, which is pay it off when it comes in. I'll be talking about that next month, but call it your bank card or whatever, your charge card. And use it, and it'll take you right through PayPal. Wonderful way to be supportive of this good work. Nancy, I brought my iPad and didn't have a chance to use it to tell people everything that it knows about the IRS. Stay tuned for next time. I may teach you about the IRS because reckoning day is coming, Jason. The reckoning day is coming when it's going to be time to file those taxes. So stay tuned. That's it. Until next Friday, you all stay blessed. You hear?